my voice come through the music.
I want to make sure I give room to anybody who feels like they want to share.
As were your own, I hand me down.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Susan.
It's not very much, but I don't think I suppose I met Ed the first time, and it must have been 2014 when I came to the Sangha in person for the first time. And I'd only ever see him if I was in Austin, either at the Sangha or when book group was held in person too. And he'd always have such wise words, and I'd always think, well, how can I say something after that? Because nothing I can say will be as meaningful as what Ed said. And then when COVID came, you'd see him several times a week with Mary online. And then it was in November 2022 that I was in Austin, and Mary and Ed came to pick me up from the Airbnb where I was staying. And they took me to Barton Springs. And Mary ran on ahead, and Ed and I were walking slowly behind because we couldn't catch up with her because she was so fast. And afterwards, we went back to their house for book group. And then afterwards, they were showing me lots of different things in their living room, like this is what Mary's sister painted, and this, and then Ed pointed down to the floor and said, "And this is a nude painting of me." And he said that the painter had said, "I'd really like to do a nude painting of you." And he said, "Well, you can do a nude painting of me if you will be in the nude when you paint it." And so that's what they did. And Mary had put a little ceramic doll in a rocking chair, I think, just in front of the lower part of that painting.
Nice.
The first person to share today, Kim Carolyn, is here with his son Luke, and it was Luke's mother that painted the picture of Ed. You'll see it there on the wall behind Scott Shirey. Ed wanted people to share with him while he was still alive. Here is Brigitte when she came to one of Sundays with Fast Eddie.
Okay. I really appreciate how thoughtful you are.
Thoughtful?
Yeah, you're full of thoughts. And you express them honestly. But you know, what those thoughts provoke in others is consciousness, you know, like you're constantly poking people to wake up.
The city library had an event, and Ed and Brigitte had a good time dancing.
Looking for a place to hide. Well, I went down to the end of town, right down to the riverside. Well, I got down to the riverside.
I'd like to speak.
Hey, Dorothy.
You know, what's foremost for me has to do with what Robert said, and that's been brought up again, is just to imagine this amazing ripple effect. And today shows very clearly, even in this small group, relatively, when you consider the world, how much how much impact Ed had.
I never met the asshole. I came along later, and we connected on so many levels. We had a lot of common ground with Esalen, with Est, with on a spiritual level, and it never took more than a couple of sentences.
About something, Fritz Perls or whatever. And that's all that needed to be said. Words were not foreground. And I loved going and visiting with Mary and Ed at their home. I want to just appreciate at this moment, Mary, for your absolute dedication and your care of Ed, your service, which was a spiritual service to me to watch you through the time I've known y'all. I have to bring up that picture. I know the first time I visited, the picture also had a chair and a pillow or something in front of it, and Ed wanted to make sure, that I got to see what was behind that. And in some conversation, when I told Ed, well, when my last relationship had ended in 96, I knew I was meant to be alone, to live a solitary life, and that I was going to be able to serve better in that way. So, hey, well, what about sex, And I said, well, I've been celibate, but I've had the best orgasms I've ever had in my life by, making love to, at first it was Dan Fogelberg, and then I passed that into making love to rejected parts of myself, times when I judge my own self for being fat, or the bitch in me. He had, which I didn't know the asshole, but I had my own bitch inside, and to be able to truly make love, to let that be the vision. And, over the years it became different, and now then it was God's will, and now it's true nature, which is the gift I've gotten, that concept of true nature in Buddhism. So he loved that. He loved that was true. Yesterday, so all day yesterday and all day today, I have, since I've known that he died, that's been my world. Not in thought or whatever, but just feeling the presence of Ed and Mary and all of my beautiful Sangha and everyone else. And that's all I'm going to say.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. That was great. Is there anybody else that wants to share?
Follow up with Dorothy. Dorothy and I had a chance to visit Ed and Mary back in May. Dorothy and I had come out for Jimmy's birthday in May and really wanted to make a priority to come visit Ed and Mary. And I actually took a few pictures. Oh, there's a picture right there. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's us visiting Ed and Mary there. We had a wonderful, chat. And, I met Ed 20 years ago, and he pulled up on his motorcycle, introduced himself as fast, all of the same things we've heard.
In 2005, I took a trapeze course in the hill country at an enlightenment center called The Crossings. And I stepped off, reached way back and catch his hands and be caught, just like in the movie Trapeze.
Every chance I get, I really appreciate hearing what Ed, has to say. And
thank you so much for being with us today.
But one of the things that hasn't come up, which, and at the time I was wondering, why did Ed want to share this? And so this is a picture of Ed and Ed's parents, I believe, at the farm that he grew up in rural Louisiana.
Ed grew up on 20 acres near Denham Springs, Louisiana. His father worked on the oil derricks out in the ocean and was gone for long periods of time. So Ed was in charge of the farm. He also took care of his two brothers. He took care of chickens, milked cows, kept the barn neat. Ed's father had lots of horses, and he loved to take the neighbor kids horseback riding to the closest little town.
I've always thought of Ed as a transformative guy,
Ed always did all the courses he could hear about. For instance, the Wisdom course, Sex and Intimacy, The Artist's Way, Nature of Reality, and the Course in Miracles, just to name a few. Ed enjoyed reading the book Radical Honesty, written by Brad Blanton. Ed called Brad and ended up going to Virginia and taking a week-long course with him.
And I called you a couple of months ago because I was missing my update from Ed about whatever you had been reading or thinking, or the most recent thing about your life. And so I like and appreciate you for the way you've been my friend.
And another book he read, The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. They called it Scott Peck. Scott Peck came to Austin and led a seminar. Ed recognized Houston Smith and helped him get on a boat, and then they talked about research with Timothy Leary and LSD, back when it was legal.
And many of the people that I've met have been coming from something and rejecting that and then moving into something new. That was not Ed. I mean, Ed loved where he came from. And maybe Dorothy, you could, and Mary, Ed very much wanted to share with us, where he came from and his parents.
His father died in his late 60s because of a heart problem, and his mother died in her 90s. And then they sold that 20 acres, and a senior facility was built there. And at the Sangha, Ed and I were talking to a woman named Chris. She lived in Denham Springs, and her aunt now lives in that senior facility, right there where Ed grew up. So Chris actually goes there and walks on that land and visits. The barn was given away to an artist group and is now an art studio. Ken, you mentioned Ed riding a motorcycle. He also gave that away.
After everything that's been said, I mean, most people who come from this environment, and again, I don't want to get into politics and all that sort of thing, but we can be very, very judgy these days. But Ed was inclusive, and where he came from. In fact, this next picture, as I was, in fact, Mary drove me to the airport in this car, and I was looking at this car and the fact that Mary had painted, and I thought, for a guy who's from rural Louisiana to be married to a woman who did this to her Toyota is just an amazing thing. And so Ed really, I think, would want us to appreciate everything about him and where he came from, and that he embraced it all. Dorothy, would you have anything else to add to that?
I don't think so. I think you did a great job. No.
How about you, Mary?
When someone runs into your car, it might be a good idea to paint it.
I think Ed very much, would have wanted you to know where he came from and that, that he was a complicated and wonderful guy.
Thanks, Ken. That was great.
Thank you, Mary.
Here's a note I found in Ed's drawer. He wrote this. This is the best day of my life. I could be dead in a week, and I've been healthy 99% of my life. I have lived life full tilt boogie. And Ken, you saw the picture of Ed in our living room.
I did.